yesterday because I don't do marches. It's just not my thing. But I watched the whole thing that was streamed live and everything, and it spoke to some people who were there. And, as usual, my feeling about these things is that in terms of letting people know that they're not alone and there are other people alongside them who feel the same way, just to get a bit of love and a bit of support. That's their best function. Otherwise, I don't think they actually serve any meaningful purpose. Now, that's not to disparage people who went there yesterday with a genuine sense of conviction that they wanted this to all end. But there were some things I saw in the videos that kind of bothered me. First of all, right from the get-go, you know that I would never be involved in any organisation. So it was run by Yellow Vest Ireland. I'm sure most of them are nice people. I don't know any of them. I'm sure I have nothing else, so I'm not going to talk shit about anyone like that. But the camera kept focusing. The central banner said, "End carbon taxes." Now, there's only one issue at the moment in Ireland. Okay, there's one issue and there's no other issue, and the only issue is the needlecraft apartheid. There's no other issue in Ireland. None. Zero. No other issue. Okay. This is the only issue in Ireland that matters. Is the needlecraft apartheid. Okay. When I saw that banner going on about carbon taxes, I got a whiff of the Brendan Ogles and the Irish Water crowd. Uh, Not saying they're involved, but that kind of mentality of taking something and moving it somewhere off into Never Never Land. Like the water protest was moved off into the Syrian refugee crisis. People joined that in their tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, to stop unfair water charges. And before you knew it, it was moved off into something to do with Syrian refugees and open borders. And I'm smelling the same. Whenever I see another issue mentioned, when there's only one issue on the table, and I see ancillary banners for side issues, it makes me uncomfortable because it suggests a political agenda rather than a one issue target. And that bothered me. The speeches that were quite good, there's no problem there. They were quite inspiring, and I agree with lots of them. What I would say, but I know these things are complex and there's all kinds of things involved. But when you go down to government buildings and you have a demonstration, you're begging your master for a bone. I'm amazed, and I still saw loads of placards yesterday with Tony this and Leo that on it. And I'm again like the first act of insurgency is the removal of this cancer of Irish people calling politicians by their first names. The greatest act of insurgency you can do as an Irish person is to never again for the rest of your life call a politician by their first name. Because then they hate that. That horrifies them. Because then they know right there and then you're no longer their pets. Because when you call them by their first name, you're announcing that you're their pet. Excuse me. Please on the truth. Now, yeah, so that was a bit, that kind of bothered me. There's a bit too much happy clappiness going on. A bit too much, isn't this wonderful kind of thing going on. I think what's happening in Italy and France, where the politicians are a lot more frightened, is much more healthy. And I think my suggestion yesterday that you go and you make your feelings known to businesses who are enforcing needlecraft in apartheid in their TripAdvisor pages and so on is a much better effective thing because it comes from anger. It's much more satisfying because you're getting the anger out rather than dancing away to happy clappy music. And so that again, I'm not disparaging anyone who was there yesterday. That's great that you turned out in such huge numbers, but you know, there's only one issue involved here. And I saw there's some cunt walking around with a picture of Jesus Christ as well at the front. That doesn't help either. I mean, you know, you have to be very. I don't know how you tackle that. You know, I don't know how you tackle that. I mean, everyone's entitled to their religious beliefs, but that doesn't. That's automatically alienates people who would be want to be on your side. It's like the Palestinian flag. Any event in Ireland that has a Palestinian flag, if a Palestinian flag goes up, just go home. Don't spend any time with them. That's an issue to take you away from Ireland. Just like I might suspect that thing about no carbon tax was an issue to take you away from the only issue at hand. There's only one issue in Ireland now. That's needlecraft. That's the mandatory needlecraft apartheid. There's nothing else. There's no other issue in Ireland right now if you actually are an activist. My own feelings of all this now is Ireland is now an illegitimate republic. The republic has fallen. I know this sounds like hyperbole, but the republic fell when the vote when the Hobbit Higgins, the embarrassment. You see, the man President Michael Higgins, he looks like a little hobbit, a little Bilbo Baggins, when he goes to a public events, a little hobbit, and when you see him against all the other world leaders, he's like he's just this little fella. You know, he's a hobbit who collects pensions. That's all he is. That's what a hobbit who collects pensions. And it makes the country look weak and comical that you have a hobbit representing us. We want a strong alpha male figure representing us, or a strong female figure representing us. We don't want hobbits, okay? So the Republic fell the moment he signed that into law. It fell. So where are we now? Well, we're obviously looking, you know, if you consider the present Republic, the previous Republic, the continuing legacy of the Patrick Pearse initial proclamation in 1916. I know there was the 1937, there was the Irish Free State was a temporary thing, but ultimately the Republic existed as a de facto thing in the background until it was officiated in the 1937 Constitution, or 38 Constitution, by Eamon de Valera's government, and then it was officially the Republic of Ireland. So, but with taking into effect that the First Republic lasted from Patrick Pearse's speech on uh, the commencement of hostilities outside the GPO, and the Republic ended when President Michael the Hobbit, Hobbit on pension, the Hobbit who collects pensions, Higgins, signed the Needlecraft mandatory apartheid law. We're now in a situation where we are a stateless regime. We don't have a republic. We certainly don't have a government that represents the country. And we certainly don't have a democratic leadership. We have this like Tweedledum, Tweedledee, you know, cushy two-step between Varadkar and Martin every couple of years. So we now have to start thinking in terms of the Second Republic. And that's how I'm feeling right now. I'm not interested in trying to reform the plutocrats, the technological plutocrats that sit in Leinster House and Dáil Éireann, and I'm no longer interested in winning their favour. I'm no longer giving them any validation as the government of this country. We don't have a government at the moment. We will have a second republic. That's the agenda. We want a second republic, and we're not going to get it by happy clappy dancing and all this kind of thing. Unfortunately, I'm not calling for direct violence, but I am calling for direct action. And yesterday, the thing was the beginning of direct action. We need to restore the 1937 Constitution in full, and we need to roll back our abortion laws to what they were, to at least augment them, so they are a bit less abortion on demandy. We've got to We've got to make sure that Catholicism is not enshrined into the Constitution. That's something I'm very strongly about again, uh, proponing. I want a secular constitution where all religions are equally protected, and that includes paganism, by the way. But I do not want any kind of so that was the problem with the 37 Constitution, was the it gave the Catholic Church a special status in the running of the country. That'll be one part of the 37 Constitution. Burns McNaharan, I would not put in there. Regarding, reproductive laws and things like that. I would be very open and liberal about most of that stuff, but I think the abortion laws. You see, the funny thing was we kind of had abortion was illegal in Ireland before the vote in a kind of funny way. It was kind of like no one knew kind of. Well, the courts could decide if it was legal, I guess, on the circumstances. But I think that was probably there should have been a little more clarity there that abortion should have been allowed under many circumstances other than birth control. So, like, we don't want Catholic priests and holy rollers running the country again, ever again. We don't want that. Other than that, I'd be in favour of a second republic with the basically most of the guts of the 1937 Constitution intact. That's it. That's the whole. We need new media. We need it all. I know this sounds incredible, but we're in the same situation that people were in the Eastern Bloc in, say, 1985, 86. Who would have thought by 1990 the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc would have fallen and these countries would have been back in charge of their own affairs? Well, it's 1985 in Ireland, and you can sit there, all you civil servants can sit there giggling and laughing at this. But I don't think you fully understand. This is the thing with the Irish government. You can have the cops tail us all you like. You can put us on all the wanted lists and watch lists all you like. You can get your corporate propaganda media to run hit pieces all you like. But what you politicians and particularly senior civil servants who are unelected have to understand is that I don't think you fully realize just what danger you are in. There is anger out there that you have no idea. So it's wrong. So there are people out there who are not lunatics. They are highly educated, intelligent people, and they see they see that the republic has fallen as well. And remember, Irish politicians and senior civil servants, especially civil servants, you always seem to forget that you love to hide behind the politicians, but like remember, you're top of the list of the people who we blame and for the fall of the republic. And you have to remember that unlike the ones in France and unlike the ones in Britain and unlike the ones in Italy, you don't have a vast military and security force to hide behind. In fact, I would say that a rather small force of maybe 100 or a couple of hundred people armed could probably seize this republic and take it immediately. And your appalling treatment of the defence forces and the bad pay and I know they signed the oath and everything to protect the Constitution, but they haven't signed the oath to protect you. And do you really think that the Irish Defence Forces that you've treated like shit for the last 25 years, are going to come and save you? So bear that in mind. I'm not saying this will happen. This is a friendly word of advice. I don't think you fully realize the anger that you've instilled out there. And you can justify it and fob it off by saying something like, oh, it's just a few head cases or big mouths and think they're... No, I think you'd be surprised. There's the present day O'Reillys and the present day Patrick Pearses and the present day Michael Collinses are already out there. And you humiliating and slagging them off was the same thing as your forefathers in the British establishment did. Look how that worked out. So there's an easy way out of this. If you can immediately and remove this needlecraft apartheid legislation, then the republic is restored, and then things are back to normal. But as long as that law is that is in law, every politician in the country is a traitor, including the ones who voted for it, because the ones who voted for sorry didn't vote for it should have stood up and walked out. Like they should have stood up and walked out, but they didn't. They played the cushy side of the fence. So remember that. As things stand, until the legislation that was signed into law last week by President Hobbit pension collector Higgins is revoked and removed from the statutory books, and people have their freedom back. We're currently in a present situation where we are creating the Second Republic. And that's not hyperbole. I'm not joking, I'm completely serious. And there's many people out there who are serious as well. And you can very easily save your own hides by revoking the legislation. It's as simple as that. Or you could continue to listen to unelected bureaucrats who have brought this in until it basically becomes a sort of Damocles that falls upon you. You're being unlike what you did to us with this horrific legislation. We in the provisional Second Republic, as I'm calling it right now, have given you a fair choice until that registration is revoked. This is the provisional Second Republic of Ireland, and that's not a joke. And believe me, there's plenty of hungry and eager young fellas and young women out there who agree with this and are very much further down this path than I am. So you want to collect your pensions and live in absolute luxury? Because remember, with a Second Republic, one of the things I would do is I'd mandate is that all pensions, the government workers, would be completely revoked and removed, because that government wouldn't work, doesn't exist anymore. So, being what you are in the previous republic, self-serving, greedy, dynastic, globalist maggots, think of what you think about primarily above everything else, lining your own pockets, rather than globalist mandates. But let's see what happens, because I can tell you something. You're going to be very, very surprised, I think, if some of the some of the feelings I'm getting, some of the hints that are coming back to me, all the RT propaganda in the world, it will not prevent the rise of the Second Republic. Thank you.